Hello and welcome to the next in our video series of employment law during the pandemic. I'm Louise Brenlund, a Senior Associate in the employment team, and I'm joined by Lily Toppo, HR consultant from our sister company, Kent HR. Today we're looking at grievances and dealing with grievances during the pandemic.
So during the current circumstances, there may be some individuals that are on furlough. So Louise, does this make a difference at all?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question, and that's what we've been asked by a lot of our clients, actually. So again, the Acas guidance suggests that an employee that is furloughed can still raise a grievance, which makes sense that they can do so. But then I guess the question that does come around whether, having raised a grievance, can they then take part in that grievance process if they're still furloughed? Again, the ACAS guidance and the guidance that we've been provided is that provided that the employer is able to comply with the requirements in accordance with claiming under the furlough scheme, you can still carry on with that process. So it would seem to us and other commentators in the area seem to believe that actually it would be fine to proceed with an individual investigating their grievance and dealing with their grievance, so they could take part in the process themselves, because they wouldn't actually be undertaking any work that would bring in an income for the employer or doing anything that would be beneficial to the employer. That's all about the individual and the individual's grievance. So yes, it would seem that the individual can do that, and they can be interviewed and that can be investigated. However, where the difficulties may lie is then actually dealing with that grievance itself. So, for example, appointing an investigator who is likely to also be an employee, unless, of course, you're going to an outside agency, which is why there may be an increase in employers using HR consultants like yourself. If they are an employee, then you need to consider, well, if that employee is furloughed, that potentially is going to be seen as work. It's not clear. The boundaries on this are quite grey at the moment, and we don't know where that's going to lie. Obviously, we haven't had any case law in this regard, but the suggestion seems to be that you should think very carefully about who you engage to carry out the investigation process, and then if there's a grievance hearing, who would need to deal with that grievance hearing, because potentially are they employees, and are they therefore going to be considered to be carrying out work, which would effectively mean that you wouldn't be able to claim under the furlough scheme. So you do need to think very carefully around that. So whilst, yes, in theory, a grievance can be raised and it can be dealt with, you potentially can't claim under the furlough scheme. So do please, we would urge you to think carefully around that. And if you are thinking about continuing with process, please do take advice on that process and what would be appropriate in that regard. Obviously, the other thing that's coming up, Lily, quite a lot is around redundancies. That's a decision as an alternative to furlough at the moment. So what kind of things do you think employers would need to think about with regard to redundancies?
So Louise, it would be dependent on the context of the grievance raised. So if it's related to the redundancy, then it can be part of the appeal process. Again, you would need to appoint somebody that's not been involved in the redundancy decision making, to look into the matter. If, for example, grievances are unrelated to the redundancy and to the redundancy, the grievance process can run parallel to the redundancy process, but taking into account, obviously, the timelines. In some cases, you may well find that the redundancy procedure will overtake the grievance one, and if the individual is selected, then their employment could come to an end before the grievance is fully resolved. We hope that you found our discussion regarding grievances during the pandemic a useful reminder that grievances should be handled in the usual manner as per your grievance procedure and in line with ACAS code of practice, although the process may need to be adapted to ensure that you are following government guidelines.